really important to, especially empaths, I think. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you're watching Team Live or Team Replay, you can put in the comments hashtag Team Live or hashtag Team Replay. So today's live coaching is about the survival mode that you have been existing in for far too long, y'all, and how you can turn it into the greatest strength to transform your life. I know because I've done it and I've helped others, hundreds of others do it. Right now, more than ever before, with everything that's been going on, it's like everyone is in survival mode. But many of us, we've lived here our whole lives. And today I am super excited to show you how you can use the unique skills, yes, I'm calling them skills, that you learned while battling things that no one else would survive. If you're new here and you don't quite know me yet, my name is Kristen. I'm an alternative healing practitioner and a subconscious transformational hypnotherapist. And I have an online coaching program where I help driven, empathic, strong women who suffer from trauma and anxiety break through to their true purpose and create a fulfilled and meaningful life that they love without having to conform to anyone else's expectations or opinions. So again, today's live coaching is on how you can turn your survival mode into the greatest strength. I'm super excited to bring this to you today because people have no idea the battles that you struggle with every single day. But strong, beautiful, amazing women, you deserve better. Let me know in the comments if you're excited about learning this today. Give me a yes in the comments. Today, I'm going to show you tonight. I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can turn the skills you've successfully developed, might I add, while living in survival mode into the greatest strengths that were only meant for people like you and me. But first, I want to talk a little about what survival mode is, because as I was preparing and researching and creating this live, I started reflecting on my own journey and what survival mode meant to me. And I wasn't sure if my experience was going to be the same experience that everyone else had. And what I found in my research is that yes, we all kind of have our own nuanced experiences of our own trauma and what survival mode means to us according to what our life story has been. But there are characteristics that are indicative of being in survival mode. So that's what I want to focus these greatest strengths on today. How to take these general characteristics that you all are going to identify with most likely if you're an empath and if you have had trauma or if you suffer from any kind of anxiety or depression, basically the people who are in this group. What are the hallmark characteristics for all of us? And I want you to see how they play into your life, and moreover, how you can use those very things to actually create your greatest strengths and transformation in your own life. So what I found is that survival mode is actually a psychological and physiological state. So psychological meaning, for me, as a transformational hypnotherapist, psychological means mental, yes, but mindful also. And to me, mindful is where the mind and the emotions kind of connect and make a more rich experience of something that's just kind of like mental. So psychological and physiological state. Physiological meaning the way that your body, when it is connecting with specific practice, emotions, or programmed beliefs, how it reacts to that. Okay, so survival mode is a psychological and physiological state where a person operates with the primary goal of getting through immediate threats or stressors, often at the expense of long-term planning, emotional processing, or your own personal growth. If you are stuck in any area of your life and you are participating in personal growth activities and you feel like, wow, I've grown a lot. This has all worked really well for me, except I keep hitting this certain plateau. It is the beliefs and the pre-programming in your survival mode that are creating these blockages for you. And it's what we're going to go over today. It's deeply ingrained instinctual responses to perceived danger or overwhelming circumstances. And the reason I highlight the word perceived is because this is such an empowering word. When we realize that our perception holds our power, we get really intentional about the way we choose to perceive something. And I struggled with this at first, especially being in all the abusive situations that I've been through in my life. Name it, been through. How can you tell me that it's just my perception that this 280-pound man is coming after me and I shouldn't perceive this as a threat? I want to make this clear in the beginning before we go through, and try to remember this as I go through, that just because we're calling it your perception doesn't mean that someone else wouldn't perceive it the same way. It doesn't make it less of what anyone would really perceive in that particular situation. But we want to be careful not to give our power away, because when we can raise our vibration and choose a different perception, we actually choose different reactions and actions from having an experience, as opposed to feeling a victim to an experience and like, well, this is just the way that it is. But I'm going overboard right now. So let me just get into the first characteristic that we see in people who are operating out of survival mode. So you may be listening and you may think like, I don't know, am I operating in survival mode? I've never had this conversation before. I don't really know. I'm hoping that this is going to help you understand that that's probably what's going on with you. And if you already know that you are definitely in survival mode, which I always knew that that's where I was living, then this will help you to reframe that and see what other way that you could be perceiving something or looking at something, so that you can start on the process of getting yourself out of that mind frame and that mindset and into the life that you love living. Okay. So the first one is hypervigilance. I got to take this off. The first one is hypervigilance. Constantly scanning for threats. This is how it shows up in survival mode. Like even when there's no threat present, you're constantly scanning your environment for something that's going to go wrong so that you can, prepare for it. For me, by the way, if this sounds like you, I want you to type "that's me" in the comments. Okay, let us know that you are feeling this, that this is something that you can relate to. I must have been somewhere in my late 20s, I'm guessing, when I figured out that I was being hypervigilant in my life. And I didn't know what hypervigilance was. I never heard the term, and I still at this point probably hadn't. But I did know that I was constantly looking for people to be taking advantage of me, or hiding things from me, or acting like they could just get one over on me. It might not be the same, look the same for you as it did for me. It may also, but it may not. For me, that's just a product of what my experience was. Your experience might be different, but the sameness is that you're scanning your environment, the people you're talking to, the circumstances you're in, for the trick or for the threat or whatever it is for you, right? So when you're used to everything going wrong. Golly, Jesus, I do. No, you get so tired of being let down or disappointed. So you just learn to like constantly be looking for it to go wrong. I mean, it's the safer bet. This way, you can be prepared and not caught off guard. Could you imagine thinking that things were going to go well and then they went to shit and you had your hopes up? And you're going to see this kind of reoccurring theme in survival mode, not wanting to expect good things. It's like the umbrella. We operate from a place of everything's going to hell, the world's going to blow up, we're going to lose everything. And, I've got to operate from that place and I'll be safe. It's a word you're going to hear a lot too, safe. For me, I feel like I was all alone in this. People around me had no clue. They would actually say to me all the time that I need to stop expecting the worst. Like, Kristen, you just need to stop expecting the worst. Like, as if I chose to expect the worst. And no, I was trained over my whole life that this is just the way that it is. Anytime that I would choose a positive perspective or choose to expect the best, boom, I would regret it because nothing ever worked in my favor. Put a 1 in the comments if this sounds familiar to you, if this is your story. What I didn't realize back then is how much power I had. Like, as a complete, whole, healed individual, the power that was not available to me because of my perception. It was like there was a fuzzy cloud of illusion over my mind that had been constructed over all the years of being let down and disappointed. And I didn't realize that as an adult, I could choose something different. Once I was able to heal my trauma, not get rid of it, that's different, a different thing. Okay. I was finally then able to reframe the way I was focusing on things and transform my perceived weakness into a strength. Just saw a little critter on the ground. I'm like terribly afraid of bugs, even though they're like this small, but so this same mental sharpness that we use to be hypervigilant, right? The same mental sharpness that I use to scan my environment for threats so that I would be prepared if anything went wrong. I actually learned to use that as a skill to see what others were missing. You see, for you, similarly, when you're the type of person who's constantly scanning your environment for threats, you've developed a skill of mental sharpness in a way that is very connected with being an empath. Part of being an empath is having hypervigilance. You're able to tell when someone's lying, not because you have some spiritual gift, but because you've had to scan your environment for the smallest bit of threat your whole life. So you can tell when someone's lying. You can tell when someone's not quite comfortable. You don't know why, but you can tell they're not comfortable. Warning, look at that person, watch that person. What's going on? Hypervigilance. Well, you could actually use this as one of your greatest strengths. Because with that ability, with that skill, you can actually find opportunities that no one else can find. You can find patterns in things that no one else is capable of. You can even feel energies and other people's energy. You can even feel the needs that they don't even know that they have. This is why I'm so good at what I do. It's because I spent the first, all of my life in hypervigilance. So I'm able to connect with people on a level that they have not even connected with themselves yet. And you too have that power. I want you to start asking yourself, instead of asking yourself, what else could go wrong here? Stop looking for the problem and switch your perception or your focus to what else is possible here. What can I not see that's right in front of me? It's like a little prayer that I do when I'm struggling with something. I will quietly say, show me what I cannot see that's right in front of me. Why? Because I understand that I have CPTSD. I understand that I am used to operating out of survival mode. So awareness is such a beautiful thing, because once you're aware of something, you can now be aware of when it's happening and then pull out your tools and your skills to start using what you know to do as your greatest strength. I have offered y'all today, if you haven't gotten it, please let me know right now. Go into my DM and say, I didn't get it, and I'll send it to you as soon as I get out of here. I have offered y'all a guide, and it is a practice that I put together years ago when I was at the lowest point of my life. And I needed to change my reality immediately. And when you get that desperate to get out of a situation, you'll try anything. And so I started putting together all of these different techniques that I was learning on YouTube, and I created the process that I have for you in that guide. Within 3 weeks, my life changed. I looked back at my past at the moment where I decided to implement these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, my life is not even the same as it was. And I didn't even notice the change until it was 3 weeks later and it had already completely changed. So the reason that that works is because you're using the emotional tone scale, which works with your vibrational frequency. This is not woo-woo. This is real. Like, this is, if you realize, I don't know if any of you know this, that our eyes, our brains, and our bodies can only perceive 0.005% of the visual light spectrum. That means that 99.95% of what's out there you cannot see. This is not woo-woo. This is real life. And I know a lot of you understand that, but some of you haven't heard of it. And so it's really important that you understand that your vibration attracts, your thoughts attract. And so if you want to change that, you have to change your beliefs, you have to change your vibration, you have to change your subconscious patterning, because it's all part of what makes up your vibration. And the way that you do that is by focusing your attention. Use the guide. Okay? Because as a survivor, you already know how to detect these subtle shifts. It's just a skill that you have been doing your whole life. But with healing, this becomes intuition and foresight. Two keys to visionary thinking and leadership. Okay? So in that way, you go from survivor mode to transformation mode. You go from hypervigilant to intuitive creator. Okay? How many of you are with me so far? Comment survivor if you're feeling this. I'm loving it. The only thing I'm not loving is that I know I saw a bug on the floor. And I'm like, where is this fucker? I do not want to meet him. We are not friends. So the characteristic of survival mode that I identify with for all of us next is emotional overload. And when I say all of us, I mean, I have students, I have clients, and I've been seeing hundreds for the past 11 years. And this is the way I see survival mode in all of us. When I was doing the research, what I came across was emotional dissociation. And I didn't like that. I wasn't feeling it, because it felt like whoever wrote that research never experienced it. And that's my biggest problem with the medical system and the mental health care system today, excuse me. If you are a mental health care professional, or you're someone who has the responsibility of helping other people heal, um, if you have been through survival mode, if you have experienced depression and anxiety, if you have experienced attachment issues, you'll know what I'm talking about if you're in the field, then you are going to be phenomenal. I'm just going to cry. You're going to be phenomenal in this field, but you have to address these issues, overcome them so that you can help others. I'm crying because I'm inspired by you, and I'm inspired by your strength and your beauty. And I wish I had tissues with me because I always cry because I'm an empath. um, I'm inspired by the people who have had it the worst. And instead of crawling in a hole and going to work at some job that, doesn't move them, they choose to take their pain and go help others. I love you. So the second characteristic is emotional overload. And this is so crucial because I don't look at it as dissociation. I look at it as a reaction to emotional overload. One person goes the more of the anxiety route. If you have too much emotion, unexpressed emotion in your body, you're going to overload it and it's going to spill out and it's going to look like anxiety, panic, or clinging to someone or something that is closest. Doesn't matter if it's healthy or unhealthy, whatever's closest. And usually it is unhealthy because healthy takes time to develop. And a person who's in emotional overload doesn't have time. Okay. The other way that this looks is avoidance. So it looks like I'm too emotionally overwhelmed. I'm going to shut down. And I just can't let any more in. Okay. So depending on who you are and what your story is, you're going to be on either side of the spectrum. Either way, with emotional overload, emotions can feel blunted or overwhelming. Survival mode can lead to emotional numbness and shutdown. So the second main characteristic hallmark of being in survival mode is emotional overload. I specialize, I'm sure at this point in this live, this, that I specialize in working with people who have CPTSD, trauma, anxiety, depression, and who are essentially empathic. I have CPTSD, and I'm an empath. So I understand what all this is like in a very intimate way. Growing up, I don't think that if the people who were caring for me or just in general in my life, I don't think that if they would have realized how sensitive I was, that any of the abuse would have stopped. Like, I think it was just what they learned and they just passed it on. But as an adult, I now look back at my childhood as the battlefield that I had to survive. And I would venture to say I have a brother and a sister that my sister would not describe it that way at all. It kind of had that quality of on the outside looking like everything was great. I mean, people could tell that we had our struggles, but it didn't look like we were, and there was any abuse going on inside of the house or anything like that. I wonder if y'all can relate to my experience at all. Have you ever felt that same kind of way when you were growing up, like that you had to hold your feelings in, that you had to hold in your true self in order to survive a beating, or that you had to get really good at pretending because you weren't allowed to have emotions? Put a 2 in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. So if you ever had to like, if you were ever so consumed emotionally that the only way that you could deal with it because you weren't allowed to express yourself, the only way that you could deal with it was to smoke or drink or do other behaviors that were destructive to yourself, just so that you could deal with the enormous amounts of emotions inside of yourself that they didn't allow you to express, or that it wasn't acceptable to them for you to have. When you're living with a survival mindset, y'all, emotions are intense, they are chaotic, and they are overwhelming. You know that? I mean, I would venture to say that it hasn't changed much from childhood, because if that was your experience in childhood, then that is how you practiced feeling and thinking and believing. It's programmed. Something that's repeated over and over and over again becomes just the way it is. You feel everything, but never learned how to process anything. You just learn to mask it and keep going. But it's continuing to build up, and then it just either shuts you down, or the smallest thing can just set you off. When I was going through my healing journey, I created a process that completely changed everything for me. I still have my amazing empathic superpower, but now without the emotional overload. And I teach it to my clients and my students too. Like Jackie. Jackie was married, I can't remember how long it was. I think it was 16 years, to a brutal narcissist. I mean, he was awful. She came to me incredibly traumatized, disempowered, and broken, unable to experience her emotions in any healthy way. But she had the awareness that she could be different, that life could be better. After working with her, she now feels the same emotional ease, peace, and freedom that I feel unless bugs are around. That depth of feeling that you have, it means that you actually have the capability of extraordinary emotional sensitivity, not as a weakness, but as a form of deep perception. And I say not as a weakness because when you grow up as an empath, you are treated like your sensitivity is something to be ashamed of. And so you start to think of being emotional as being weak. The problem is that because that belief system was perpetuated outside of you and inside of you, that when you stuff everything down, yeah, when the emotion comes out, it comes out like unhealthy. But if you heal it and you learn how to deal with your emotions in a healthy way, now you can express yourself with freedom and peace and healthy, emotionally healthy. When given the tools and boundaries, it can evolve into high level emotional intelligence and powerful empathy. I have a video on YouTube. It's really old and, not my best work, but it really helps with this. It's a great start if you want to take action now. I'll put the link in the link to it in the comments so that you can practice the exercise on your own. Let me go ahead and put that in right now. Will it let me? Comments. I don't know what's going on with this comments, so I'll just put it in afterward. No worries. You already feel deeply, which, as I've expressed several times already, this is a superpower. The next step is building containers like boundaries, specific kind of language, or self-regulation, emotional regulation, so that the feelings can flow without flooding you. And then the last characteristic that I want to talk about is short-term thinking. You see, for people who are in survival mode, long-term goals feel irrelevant. It's like, why would I waste my time when I have to think about the here and now constantly? Decisions are made to get through the next hour, the next day, the next month, and not worried about later. I actually used to date this guy who would never create weekend plans until Wednesday. Oh my God, it used to drive me crazy because I like to schedule things. It just makes me feel safe and secure to have structure. He, on the other hand, had major PTSD. And just like most of us in this community, he too was living in survival mode. He learned that any plans made too far in advance would just go sour, you know? So there was no point in making them because they just fall apart. That was his perspective. But it was actually deeper than that, because it was more than just about making plans. To him, absolutely nothing was safe. Nothing, no one could be trusted. And that completely affected the way he showed up in his reality, in his life. There was a certain level of caution in his stride that would have crippled me. Like I couldn't live my life like that. But it had been the way that he learned to cope with the battlefield of life. He couldn't trust anyone, not even himself, to handle whatever life threw at him. And I know some of you understand what that feels like. Have you ever experienced this kind of what we call self-abandonment? Put a 3 in the chat if this is you. It's a chat, right? Comments. Put a 3 in the comments if this is you. Were you so used to people telling you one thing? Oh my gosh, my son struggles with this too, because his dad was like always telling him he was going to come pick him up. And then my son would be sitting out on the front porch for like 3 hours and the guy never showed up. He never called, nothing. And so my son started developing this feeling like you can't trust anybody. And now he has, his father is very much in his life and is made up for everything. But now my son does it to himself. He abandons himself. So that's another hallmark of survival mode. Living in the moment, aware, alert, and ready for undesired letdowns and surprises to suddenly jump out at you, for people to abandon you, for you to constantly feel trapped in the present moment, because trust is not a luxury that you've ever had. With the survival mindset, life is about getting through the day, not building a future. After all, anything you try to build ends up falling apart anyway. That was also the experience of one of my current students, Lisa. A life of trauma and abuse and disappointment from herself and others led her to believe that the wishes of tomorrow would never actually be her reality. And it's almost like there's this acceptance of that, because if I were to want, like what we saw in the hypervigilance area of this conversation, if we were to want something, we would realize that we can't have it because it's eluding us. So why would we want to have it? We just stay where we are and not want for anything. But once she started working with the program, that was until she started working with the program. So now I never stop hearing about the amazing progress, and I love it, Lisa, no worries. I never stop hearing about the amazing progress she's making inside and out. She's learning how to trust again, first in herself, and now in her reality that she's currently creating every day. You've already mastered discipline, grit, and follow through without trust. Imagine what would happen when you apply the same drive that you currently have to a dream instead of a threat, trusting that it actually could work out. I want you to pick one small thing that brings you alive, not for survival, but for just the pure joy or meaning of whatever it is. Work toward it like it's life or death, like no matter what. People stuck in survival mode often don't need motivation. They just act. Once trust replaces fear as the engine, they become unstoppable. And so will you. You don't have to heal into a new person. You get to become more of who you've always been, just no longer under threat. Using that exercise that I gave you with the emotional tone scale, you can make this happen. Survival mode taught you discipline, strength, awareness, and strategy. Transformation is just survival plus a new perception. So those are the 3 universal characteristics of being in survival mode, plus me feeling attacked by a bug falling on me, and how they can be transformed into your greatest strengths. We have hypervigilance, emotional overload, and self-abandonment. And keep in mind, there are hundreds, if not thousands of others that fall under these categories and just and do just as much, if not more, damage from a sneaky subconscious hiding place that sometimes you don't even know exists. So here's my question for y'all tonight. How many of you want to stop living in survival mode and finally experience the effortless flow you see others having, but feel stuck because your past is sabotaging your future from the subconscious level? Anyone? It is very difficult to get there alone. You will have blind spots, beliefs that you've absorbed that you can't even see are there. You might know that something's blocking you. You might have that awareness already, which is beautiful. I mean, I said it earlier, having the awareness is such a blessing, but you can't maybe identify what that is. Just because you have awareness that something's blocking you doesn't mean you know what's blocking you, right? You might even know what the belief is that's blocking you, but not know how to reprogram it on the subconscious level so that you can break through to your next level for good without falling back into the same survival behavior. Now, this just so happens to be what I specialize in, which I'm sure you've gathered at this point. My main coaching is helping strong, empathic women break through old beliefs created in survival mode. Beliefs that they can't see and can't get out of and step into their true purpose. And I'm really, really good at it. What I do with clients in the Path to Your Purpose program is the gold standard for subconscious transformation and breakthrough. You can start flowing instead of forcing, creating instead of struggling, and most of all, succeeding instead of surviving. Just like Jackie, who went from feeling trapped and powerless and broken to now knowing what it feels like to be at peace, whole, and completely free within herself. If this is something that you want help with, I want you to comment breakthrough. Or if you prefer to keep it private, you can send me a private message with the word breakthrough. This is the ultimate fast track that you can integrate years worth of knowledge, failure, trial and error in a fraction of the time you've already spent trying to solve this problem on your own. Here, what will happen is I'll reach out to you. We'll have a quick conversation. I'll talk to you about what's going on and get a clear idea of where you're at with breaking through this learned, sabotaging, survival coping mechanism that you've developed over the years. And I'll give you an actionable plan to creating your breakthrough that is relevant to you and your life right now. If I can't help you, I promise you I have a huge network of people that I work with, all the way from healing modalities to therapies. So if I think that I can't help you, I will be honest with you and I'll tell you that. And I'll connect you with someone or something that I think will be more helpful for you. But if I am confident that I can help you break through these subconscious barriers and your goal to solve the problem forever, and your goal is to solve the problem forever. Because some people know that there's a problem, but they haven't connected with the idea or the belief that it's possible to fix. But if you're someone who understands that there's an issue, you've tried to fix it, what you're doing isn't working, and you know that you want to solve this problem forever, it might be the best decision you ever make to comment breakthrough or just send me a PM, a private message with the word breakthrough. Now, if you got value out of this training tonight, I want to apologize again for the bug and my screaming and freaking out. But if you did get value, I want you to comment value in the comments and let me know. We dropped some really critical bombs tonight on the survival programming that's been keeping you stuck. Replayers, this applies to you as well. If you got value, comment value. Again, if you're ready to break through those survival patterns and limiting beliefs and to step into the life that you're meant to live, comment breakthrough or send me a private message with the word breakthrough. I'll reach out to you and we'll talk. We'll get a clear idea of exactly which beliefs are holding you back and create your personalized breakthrough plan just for you. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight.